Well, good afternoon, everybody. I want to welcome you here to East End Books Ptown on a beautiful, thank goodness, beautiful day. We were worried last week about the weather forecast for the weekend, but everybody in the Cape knows that throughout the day it changes, and so it's been okay, the event so far. You can see in the back the beautiful new Cannery Wharf Park that got completed a number of months ago in time for this summer. It's just one of the few public access areas to the beach, Ptown Beach, on the Cape. And another good feature about this for people to know is access. It can be hard for people in wheelchairs and other challenges to get to many of the beaches. You can see this one has, I guess, what do we call that, like a pebble kind of, not pebbles, but it's a smooth surface, so you can easily get down there. And then there are ramps to get down to the town beach. So I think they did a fantastic job with this. They really did. And so just a couple of quick things. The very next event coming up is tomorrow, and that is with Nicole Tresca, who's got a phenomenal book out called Wonderland. It's about growing up. She was from Boston. She's now in Brooklyn. She and her husband, but growing up with some prominent mobsters in the family. She was not a part of that, but it's it's one of the most wildly entertaining nonfiction books I've ever read. It reads like fiction, but it's all true. And I'll say that she's got the coolest tattoos I've seen on anybody. So if you're around tomorrow, come in and meet her. And then I will say that on the 24th, we've got Dave's production partner, writing partner, Casey Sherman, coming with his book, Blood in the Water, and that is on the website, the details of that. And then you'll see the details for events throughout the summer. Most of the events are here, but there are some events you'll see on there that are off-site, like at 20 Summers New Space Stanley, which is in the Schoolhouse Gallery building. And then we have some other things at the library as well, so you'll see all those going on. That reminds me that we're hoping that people will pre-order books this year for the Provincetown Library Book Festival in September. We're the official bookseller for that, and it just helps if we, in terms of numbers, if people who are planning on going will pre-order, and then people who can't come, if you want copies of the books of these authors, and it's all on our website now, we can get those signed for you as well. The other thing I mentioned, save the date, August 15th. August 15th at the Commons here in Provincetown. Along with myself and Neil Jacobs are co-sponsoring an event to benefit Boston-based Theater Offensive, which is a theater group for everybody, and they've been around for a long time. We're building a new theater in the Fenway, and we are getting close to, I think we raised about $8 million now. We're close to getting the final amount that's needed. And this is for everyone, but there's an emphasis on Black and brown, trans, and queer playwrights to give them an audience. And so if you're here, this is an event that you don't have to pay anything to go. There is a donation. You don't have to, we just want you there. At the Commons, there'll be food from bespoke soirees. You could come on down, and there'll be entertainers coming from New York and LA. And I just want to mention, this is something that this theater company is historic, what's going to happen with the building of this, and it's thanks to the city of Boston, current government, but also under Marty Walsh, the former mayor, who did two things that are important whenever anyone out there that raises money for charities. I do a lot of that. You always ask, especially wealthy people want to know, understandably, if I give this money, how do I know, like in a year, because of expensive rents and triple net and all that, the theater company won't collapse, or how do I know these developers are going to want to jack up the rent and cancel the lease? Well, thanks to Marty Walsh and the city of Boston, including through the current Michelle Wu, and the funding that happened and the arrangements that they made with some others in the town, there's two key things that we're telling people that when they ask about that. What is the rent? Because the rents go up. The rent is $100 a month. What is the lease term? 99 years. So it's 99 years at $100 a month. So that theater company is going to be around, and anyway, we're really excited. So if you're here August 15th, come to the Commons, and then December 7th, I'm co-chairing with Christy Cashman, actress and author, and Jay Cashman, and others, an event at the Quinn, which will be at the newest restaurant that Ken Croke designed, called Lunasol, which is like being in Sao Paulo. It's going to be a lot of fun. So if you're able to go to either one, you're going to be supporting an important organization. So excited to have this event. I mean, who doesn't know Marvelous Marvin Hagler? And what I didn't know, and I think a lot of people, is how I knew how incredible he was, but there was so much I didn't know until this amazing book. And it's just phenomenal to be able to have Dave here, and then to have Representative Kip Diggs here. I mean, you know, I don't want to see a demonstration on me of his pro boxing skills, but I mean, this guy is talented, talented in the arena, and talented and needed in the State House. So we're really happy, you know, to have you here. And Julian Sears says hello, and was going to try to make it, but you know, you guys are always so busy. I'm just grateful that you're able to be here. So I just wanted to let you know there's a full intro of these amazing people on the website, but I just wanted to briefly say that Dave Wedge, of course, is a New York Times best-selling author based in Boston, and he's co-written 5 books with the acclaimed author Casey Sherman, including Boston Strong, A City's Triumph Over Tragedy, a nonfiction drama about the 2013 Boston Marathon bombings that was adapted for a 2017 movie, Patriots Day. Remember that? And the Ice Bucket Challenge, many other things. Just a very great writer, and the two of them together are pretty amazing. I remember that in 2022, Casey was talking about you, Dave, because I co-chaired an event for the film festival literary tour, and we ended up at the end of the tour at the Norman Mailer House, which my friend Tatiana von Furstenberg owns now. And we had a tour of the house, and Michael Miller came, and Casey was there for this. We had a luxury lunch. You were there. Wait a minute. This is how. All I can say is, like a lot of people, it was a difficult time. I know I should never say anything because I'm getting older now, but it's like, okay, you know, but you probably don't know because he was talking. And I was doing all these things, but no, he was talking about to me, and I, you know, not with you there with me, just how much he admires you, and what a symbiotic relationship you have in terms of the writing. So yeah, that was a packed event, and it was one of those events where it sold out, and then people still wanted to come, and you know, we had a lot of fun with that. But anyway, so then also wanted to mention that Representative Diggs is an American politician. Well, it's interesting to say that. Yes, he is. He's a really great state rep, and we're really happy to have him here. And he's a retired professional boxer. He serves as a Democratic member of the Massachusetts House of Representatives, where he assumed office in January 2021. He holds a record of 35 with 3 knockouts and North American Boxing Federation International Boxing Organization welterweight titles, and he fought his final match at the Cape Cod Melody Tent. He represents the 2nd Barnstable District in Massachusetts House of Representatives, and we're really thrilled to have both of these individuals here. I'm going to not say anything about Marvelous Marvin Hagler because we got 2 people here that can say it much better than I can. I want to thank you both for coming, and thank everybody else for taking some time out of your day to sit out here with us. Thank you. Well, thank you. Kip, how you doing? Representative, sorry.
There you go. You on? Am I on?
There you go. There you go.
Honored to be here with you, Dave. Thank you for inviting me, and you know, this is special. You know, I really didn't know Marvin. You know, my father, I call him my father-in-law. He knew him. You know, he trained with him, and one thing that he had me do is he was really into running. You know, so he's like, hey, let's go. So he would run with Marvin. This is how we'd do it. So we'd get up 3 o'clock in the morning and go running and get ourselves in shape. And when I tell you go running, we'd go like 3 o'clock in the morning. You know, so there's no get up, let's go. You know, he didn't want to hear any, hey, I'm still sleeping. We had to go. So, you know, what was neat was while we were running, we had the police would put on their lights, and we'd be jogging, and we had nothing to worry about. You know, we had just good, clean air, but he'd have us travel. We'd go to Howard and go Great Western Road or Hyannis. We just go all over the place. And when it came to running and getting myself in shape, I knew I was in shape. I was ripped and ready to go. And exactly what Marvin was.
Yeah, absolutely, and thank you for being here, Representative, taking time out of your busy schedule. I know you had 5 events today.
Yes.
Your wife was telling me, and
Wow.
you know, I would love to see Julian, Senator Sear, but he's probably at 5 other events himself.
Exactly.
But listen, Jeff, thank you for that wonderful introduction, and you have an amazing store. You're so supportive of the very vibrant literary community that's here in Provincetown. And, you know, this book, especially for me, it was essential to do an event here because this is as much a part of Marvin's life as Brockton was or Newark, New Jersey, you know. And anyone that followed Marvelous Marvin Hagler's career knows that right down there
right
in the dunes is where he did his running in his work boots with Goody Petronelli by his side. And there's actually a great picture on here on page 2, the first page of the book, sorry. That photo right there, that's here. That's right on the beach. That's Marvin running right down the street. So I couldn't do this book tour without stopping into Ptown. And you know, when I was researching this book, and I grew up in Brockton, and I always knew the legend of Marvin Hagler, but there was so much in the research of this book that I didn't know, and it was just so much fun to be able to research it and find all this stuff out. And one of the things that I learned was he called his training down here prison, because in the 70s down here there was no remote work, there was no work from home, there was no internet, so it was a ghost town down here in the off season for the most part. Nothing was open, and that's why he chose here. So he would come down here in the winter when no one was here, so he could isolate, get away from anybody. No clubs, no partying, no wives, no nothing. And he would just lock himself in. And that, in my opinion, that's why he looked like this. That's why.
Correct. I like I said, so I was a fan, but I never met him until I was a New England welterweight champion as an amateur, and it's for fighting Team New England versus Team Ireland on Nessie. So this is my first time ever being on cable TV, and so then after that we go to Maine to go skiing. So my oldest daughter Tanisha wanted to go skiing, so we go skiing and we go up the Sunday River, and I took a corner and I see Marvin Hagler. I say, "Hey, champ," and he looks at me, he goes, "Kip Diggs, New England amateur welterweight. What are you doing here?" I said, "I'm skiing with my family." He says, "All it takes is one broken leg and you're all done, and you could be good." Haven't skied since.
I love that story, man.
It's unbelievable.
It's great.
I just dropped everything and said, "Oh, okay." I was trying to be the discipline itself, and I was a lot disciplined, but I never thought about, that could break my leg. And I was also reckless and abandoned on the ski slope, so I didn't, I went down the bunny slope one time. I said, "Okay, let's go to the top." So I was doing silly things, and that could have been me. So I'm like, I'm truly blessed that I met him at that time, and his record and he was just incredible, in great shape.
Yeah, he was. Well, that was his thing, and I've been doing a lot of these events over the past couple of weeks since the book came out, about 3 weeks ago, and one of the things that really struck me when I was researching this book was the shape that he was in, and we'll get to the story a little bit. We'll tell you some of the story of this book, but since we're talking about being in shape, Goody was really the driving force behind that. Marvin loved to be in shape anyway. I write about in the story, he grew up in Newark, very poor, no father, but he had 2 uncles. His uncle Brother, and there was, he called him Uncle Brother, and then there was another uncle, I forget his name, escaping me right now, but Uncle Brother got in some trouble and he was in prison. But whenever he was out, he was in shape. He was in prison shape. And that's how Marvin, he learned a lot from Uncle Brother how to work out. And he learned a lot from Goody later in his career. And what I found interesting about it when I was researching the book was, we see all this stuff about the TB12 method and all this stuff Tom Brady did, plyometrics and flexibility and resistance training. Marvin was doing it all. He was doing it all. It was Goody he would spend an hour stretching him out every day, just stretching him. And then Goody also taught him how to eat, right, eat the right foods at the right time on the right day. And he had him on a military regimen. And that's, again, why the guy looked like that.
So I will tell you that again, I never saw Marvin train, but this guy to the right of me. But I tell you, we do over 1,000 sit-ups a day. We were ripped. Wow. Yeah. I was like, and he was, start off and you start doing this, and next we're just doing it, and it was just repetition. But just knowing how we'd run, but it was really mental. He's playing those mental games with me. No one's getting up this early. No one's doing this. No one's doing. And he's one of the things I think that both Marvin and Joe would say. Coming home. When you're getting close, last mile, we had to go. And these guys around me would tell you, when they said tell to go, I was gone. When I was running, I was like, I was working hard, but I just know Marvin was the same way, because he'd still instill it in my mind. Hey, listen, if you want to be good, if you want to be the champ, you got to do this. And no one's doing what you're doing. That's, again, boxing is a lot of physicalness, but it's really a lot of mental. And Marvin was really good at the mental game and knowing how to come in, how to do this, how to scare your opponent. He had that way. You can even see it with Tommy Hearns. Tommy Hearns Hagler fight, of course, to me is the best. That's unbelievable. And Marvin saw a little bit of blood. He was like, oh, it's on. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. So he was going to break him up, and he did.
So there's so much to talk about with Marvin, and I'll tell a little bit about why I decided to write this book. So, having grown up in Brockton, Rocky Marciano was from Brockton, and my dad was Rocky Marciano's paper boy. So like everybody in Brockton has a story about either Rocky or Marvin and how their family knew him or something like that. And so my connection was that I met Marvin when I was a little kid, and my dad took me to the Vito Antuofermo fight at the Boston Garden when I was 10 years old. And I saw that fight, and it was a very vicious beating that Marvin gave him that night. Vito Antuofermo ended with 50 stitches across his forehead after that fight. Blood was just pouring down his eyes, and the fight was stopped. And I'll never forget being a little kid, my first pro fight, and that's what I saw. Some dude stumbling around with blood all over his face through the smoke at the Boston Garden. You could smoke in there back then. And I was 10 years old, and my dad and his buddies are drinking and cheering and high-fiving. And I'm like, this is awesome. I love this. So that's what made me fall in love with boxing, and that's why I dedicated the book to my dad and that memory, But, also I wrote this book because, I wanted to write it with Marvin while he was alive, and I had approached him a couple of times, and he just was never ready to do it, so it never worked out. And then when he passed in 2021, I said, you know what, now's the time to do it. I got to do it. And I said to myself that if I don't write this book now, there's never going to be another book written about Marvelous Marvin Hagler, because our generation's we're getting older, unfortunately. We all are, but better than the alternative, right? But the younger, anyone under 40, 45 even, they may know Marvin, but if they're a boxing fan, but generally people don't. So I wanted to write this book to help preserve his legacy, because I don't think his legacy has ever been properly portrayed. Everyone that, even people that love boxing and love Marvin, they think of Marvin and what's the story? Oh, he lost to Sugar Ray Leonard. Well, he didn't lose, but he lost the decision to Sugar Ray Leonard, and then he disappeared. And people think that's the legacy of Marvin Hagler, but no, the legacy of Marvin Hagler is this book right here. And what I write in this book is the story about how him and his family got out of Newark and the horrible riots in the 60s, moved to Brockton, how he built this incredible foundation and relationship with the Petronelli brothers, took on the corrupt boxing industry of the 70s, and then fought Alan Minter for the title, a racist, a member who was supported by a white power group called the National Front. Probably the most racially explosive fight that's ever happened. And he wins, and we all know what happened after that. He got pelted with bottles, run out of the arena, and he never got his belt that night. He had to get his belt back in Brockton. It was mailed back to him in Brockton 3 weeks later. But that's not a sad story, it's a happy one, because guess what happened then? They had the biggest parade they ever had in Brockton.
They did. Yes, they did. And what's crazy also, I'll say, is, you brought up Sugar Ray. One thing that really impressed me the most is when they had the memorial in Brockton. and I was so blessed to be there. Tommy Hearns showed up. Tommy Hearns, I mean, that to me, why wasn't Sugar there?
So Casey and I actually helped put that thing together, and we had, I mean, everybody was there. We had, Bernard Hopkins was there, Stephen A. Smith, Al Bernstein, Kevin McBride, anybody that was anybody, Ron Borges, all the guys, all the boxing writers were there, and we had reached out to Tommy and tried to get him to come. We never heard back.
No, you heard, no,
Tommy came. No, I know. Sugar. No, Tommy, we never heard from him. We never heard from him. And we're all hanging out, ready to start the thing, and all of a sudden, 3 guys walk in, and one of them's Tommy Hearns. He just showed up to show us something. It's on his own, Very classy. Sugar, I have to remember correctly if we invited him or not. We might not have invited him, but he did send a video. He sent the video, and I think if my memory serves me correctly, Casey could correct me on this, but I think we did that on purpose because we didn't want him getting booed in Brockton. Because the thing was at Marciano Stadium. The Marciano statue's right behind him, but that was an incredible day. Marvin's whole family was there.
Yes.
Well, it could have been a dangerous thing for Sugar to walk in there. But there's some Brockton dudes that might want to take a little revenge on him.
Even though it wasn't his fault. I mean,
no. But
judges.
That was a beautiful day, and the mayor, Bob Sullivan, great friend of mine. I did a lot of work with Bob, and we decided, we said, we have to honor this guy, even though it was right at the end of COVID, and people were not doing big events like that. We got to do it.
Did it.
And
you guys did it.
And then we're so happy you were there. Yet another world champ that was at that event. But also, we then were able to build a statue for Marvelous Marvin Hagler, which is right next to Petronelli Gym.
If you haven't seen it,
downtown
you have
Brockton.
to get over to see Marvin's statue. It's unbelievable. It's so, he's ripped like he was, you know.
Yeah, you got the 3 belts on it. It's a beautiful statue. And what I'm telling everybody, and I'm like the biggest Brockton cheerleader, as everybody can tell, but Brockton made me who I am, so I like to pay it back when I can. That's it. And I tell people, if you love boxing or you love history, take a ride down, go see the Rocky Marciano statue, which is the biggest sports statue in North America. It's 40 feet tall. And then you go to the other side of town and you can see the Marvelous Marvin Hagler statue. You can see Petronelli Gym. There's a mural of Marvin.
Yes.
Marvin Hagler Way, Marvin Hagler Park.
Yes.
It's Marvin Hagler Town. So it's...
I remember working out there, let me tell you. The Petronelli Gym was... I even worked out with Robbie a little bit. It was amazing to be able to.
His brother Robbie Sims, for those that may not know. But
yes. So.
Did you fight Robbie?
No, we just sparred with each other.
Okay.
So he would help me get ready on a couple of my beginning fights, and just a solid dude.
How about Tony Petronelli? Did you ever spar Tony?
Nope, never sparred with Tony. Tony was training people then.
Okay.
But Goody and Goody and Pat got into a little bit of a disagreement, whatever. So they weren't always together. But Goody was.
That was after Marvin.
Yes.
That was in the later years.
Yes. So, but Goody was solid dude. He was in a couple of corners with George Battis, my trainer, and Goody would do all kinds of things for us. He was just a solid person.
What was he like in the corner?
He was quiet because he would let George do what he wanted. But he knew what I had. And he would just keep doing what you're doing. Keep doing what you're doing. George, listen to George. Keep listening to George. So, it was respect. Yeah. Goody wouldn't cross any boundaries unless George said, "Hey, Goody, do whatever," and then Goody would go ahead and get involved. But it was really just a good friendship. Good. Again, he had quite a few fighters that I could go ahead and work out with.
Yep.
And the thing about New England was so neat is like me and Mickey Ward would spar together, Ray Oliveira, Vinny Paz. I mean, I was constantly working out with guys that had so much more fighters, so much more knowledge. I mean, I will tell you that I didn't start boxing until I was 22 years old. I mean, started. So I didn't have that much of an amateur career. What I was an athlete. Okay.
He was a hockey player.
I was a hockey player, yes.
A lot of people don't know that.
So being a hockey player, I had Joe telling me get in shape. Let me tell you something. I got in shape and I won my first tournament as an amateur, and I just kept going. And hey, let's see what happens. Let's turn pro. Turn pro. We were 27-0 at one time, and ended up being 35-5. So it was a great career. And but what I had was I was very disciplined. and I knew what I wanted. You know, once I found out, oh, I got a little bit of something, so then I started sparring with people that were better than me. Hanging around with like-minded people that will help you out. There's nothing better. I mean, you know, I'm sure your idols from writing.
Yeah.
You know, you and Casey, a dynamic duo, working together, trying to just refine each other. That's what writing, that's what being a person is all about. Is trying to make yourself better. Well, now I'm a state representative. I'm trying to help my district the best way I can.
And you're doing a great job. And
Thank you.
you know, thank you for the hard work. The Cape needs good people like you that care. You know, especially in Hyannis. You know, it's such a beautiful part of Massachusetts. You know, and sometimes people on the other side of the bridge forget about it a little bit, except for summertime. You know, but they got to understand there's people down there all year.
Exactly.
And you work very hard, and that's so does not go unnoticed. But
But you know something?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, go.
Work ethic is key to life. I'm sorry. Work ethic is key to life, and I mean hard work. That's second nature. I mean we're all supposed to do that.
Yep.
No matter what it is. I don't care if you want to be the best video person, the best writer. You want to be the best, so you have to work at your craft.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
That's right.
That's what it's about.
Yeah. Well, you've certainly given your all to everything you've done, and it shows. So
Thank you.
you.
That means a lot.
I'll tell a couple of quick stories about the book and some of the things that are in it and that I learned, and then I'll open it up to a few questions, and then if people want, I'll sign a book.
Okay.
I open the book with the story of the family in Newark, and I do that because to understand Marvin and who he was, you have to understand what he went through, you know, and that in Newark, there was no father in the house. It was him and his 5 brothers and sisters and the mother, Ida Mae. In 1967 was some of the worst riots that the country had ever seen. It was called the Long Hot Summer of '67, and there was riots in every city around the country. Boston, Birmingham, Watts was a real bad one, and Newark had one of the worst. 26 people were killed that summer in riots, and many of them by the police. And the police had rooftop snipers, and it was literally martial law. And the family became prisoners in their own home for several days. And I opened the book with a scene where they're all huddled on the floor and there's bullets flying around outside, and one goes flying through the window. And that really happened. And you know, Ida Mae, the mom, to her credit, she had family there, so she didn't want to leave Newark. But eventually she realized that she had 2 boys and they were in trouble if they stuck around. So she moved them up to Brockton. And that's really where Marvin's story started. And I'll tell one more quick story about what made Marvin box. You might already know this one, but there was a kid named Dornell Wigfall, and he was a football player, and he was a tough dude. And there was another guy, he played for the legendary Brockton High School football team, 1969-70, undefeated. Armand Colombo, Rocky Marciano's brother-in-law, was the coach. And there was a kid on that team named Ken McAfee, who ended up going to Notre Dame. He was a tight end, and then he played for the 49ers, and he was one of the top prospects in the country at the point. And when the scouts would come down to watch Ken, they all came out of there wanting Dornell. And the Patriots were actually scouting him. They were planning to draft him. But unfortunately, Darnell punched a cop, and he got suspended from school and never played football again. But he did start boxing. So Marvin moves to Brockton that summer of '69, and he goes to a party in the projects, and he runs into Dornell, and he talked to Dornell's girl, the girl that was with him, and it was a bad mistake. And Dornell said, "Let's go outside." They went outside. Marvin wasn't afraid. You know, he was a tough dude, but Dornell beat him pretty good, beat him up good. Marvin actually hid under a car, so he didn't get beat up worse. He broke a tooth, and he had to go to the hospital. And after that, he said, "That's never going to happen to me again." And that's when he started going to the gym.
Wow.
That's how his career started.
Wow.
So, yeah. And then the best part of the story is, then Marvin turned pro, and Dornell was pro. And Marvin's 3rd or 4th fight, he fought Dornell, and he beat him. And then he had a rematch, and he beat him again. Yeah.
You gotta love that.
Yeah. So there's a lot of moments like that in the book, you know. And one other thing that I think, you know, my family over here will really love is you know, Rocky and Goody Petronelli were great friends. They ran around together when they were little kids, and they grew up in the same neighborhood, Italian immigrants. Their parents were from the same part of Italy. And Goody and Rocky were very good friends. In fact, when Goody was training fighters out in Michigan, Rocky would come out and work with him. So after Rocky retired in 1963, Goody and Pat were opening a gym in Brockton. They said, Rocky, why don't you come in and be a partner with us and help us run the gym? He said, sure, why not? I'll do that. So they were planning to do that in 1969, and then they got the word that the plane crashed. And so now Goody and Pat had a construction business, and they have this gym that Rocky's their ticket. You know, they were nobody. Nobody in boxing knew who Goody and Pat Petronelli were at that time. But Rocky Marciano, people knew. So if they had a good fighter, Rocky could get him a fight. Sure. Without him, they were like, we're done. What are we going to do here? That same summer, Marvin Hagler walked into the gym. And little did they know that there was their future. Yes. And that's so the serendipity of the way it happened is pretty incredible.
Sure. I mean, and I tell you, I mean, you know, if you go to Boston, you know, you have Rip Ave, you got Valenti Street, you have, I mean, Boston was the mecca of boxing at one time.
Joe DiNucci,
all those. I mean, in a way, Massachusetts is not that anymore, and that's why I mean, I want that to change so much, and I want to bring back some heavy world championship fights here because that's what Massachusetts deserves.
Yeah, no,
we're the best. Patriots, Bruins, we have it all.
Well, Marvin, two quick things. Marvin, his nickname was the fifth franchise because, you know, Patriots, Celtics, Bruins, Red Sox. Marvin's fights, as you remember, there was no internet, there was no TV. There was, 3 channels on TV. It was just the start of closed circuit. And his fights were must-see TV. They were global events.
Yes, they were.
And when he was, after he won the title in each title defense, when he beat Tommy Hearns, that was as big as the Celtics winning the title.
No doubt about it.
And people loved it. And, the other thing was I interviewed a guy for this book named George Krieger, who was one of the big executives for HBO Sports, one of the guys who started HBO Sports. And he told me, he said, if there was no Marvin Hagler, there would have been no HBO boxing and HBO Sports. He said he was our first star.
He was the real deal.
He was, and he was a star, and that's another reason I wrote the book, because I want people to forever. I want young kids to go see that statue and pick up my book and learn who Marvin was and why he was special.
And honestly, that's why I was truly wished that it would have been a draw. Make him fight again.
Sugar Ray? Yeah, well,
I mean, because honestly,
it was
the money that they both would have made. Wow.
Well, Marvin had an opportunity for a rematch, and he turned it down.
Right.
And he turned it down because he knew that it was a fiasco. What was going on, and that's another theme in the book. That if you want to know how corrupt boxing was in the '70s, you get a nice flavor of it in this book.
Sure.
With some of the stuff Don King pulled and some of those guys, and Marvin was in the middle of it, but. The reason Marvin was special was because he was always loyal to the Petronelli brothers, and they were always loyal to him.
Yes. And
that's a huge part of the story. He could have left and gone to Don King and got a title fight after 30 fights or so, but he didn't do it because he was loyal and he loved Goody and Pat, and he knew they got him where he was. It took him 50 fights before he got a title shot, and that's because of the corruption.
But boy, those 50 fights, let me tell you something. It made him so hungry, so mean, and that's why he was who he was.
Well, there's one more great Cape connection here, and then we can take some questions. When he couldn't get the title shot and all that stuff was going on, I just explained with Don King, it took Tip O'Neill and Ted Kennedy, Senator Kennedy from Hyannis. They called Bob Arum, and they said, Bob, you need to give our guy a title shot, or we're going to launch a congressional investigation into the fight game.
Wow.
And they did that because Ted and Marvin were friendly. They knew each other. Marvin would go to his fundraisers, and Ted would come to his parades when he won the title and all that, and give him citations and all that. So it's a beautiful story, and I think you're gonna love it. And this is a beautiful place to do it here. And it's a natural thing to do it here again because Marvin trained right up the street.
Where he was. Yes. This is beautiful. So thank you for having us. I mean,
thanks for coming.
It's truly an honor.
So we'll open it up to some questions, if anyone has any.
So many. Well, I was under the impression that Marvin wanted the rematch badly, but Leonard wouldn't bow to it, and he was offered something in Italy, and he was so he just moved on with his life. I don't know.
I'm
gonna learn.
I think so. I don't write about the Lennon fight in this book, but my understanding of what happened was that Marvin was there was a deal that came together to do a rematch, and it was obviously the biggest box office ever, but Marvin turned it down because by that time he was already in Italy. So Leonard ducked him for a little while. Then when the fight finally came together, Marvin had moved on, and he didn't want to go back. You know, he was happy with his life in Italy. He had a new wife, his wife Kay, and he loved his life over there. He was doing movies, and he just didn't want to, because he also knew, you know, he had a really bad taste in his mouth, not just from this fight, from the Lennon fight, but from a couple fights that I write about in this, the Vito Antifermo, the first fight. And he lost a really bad decision early in his career in Philadelphia. I mean, look, the guy lost 3 fights out of 65. And really, 2 of them were bad decisions. They were draws or he won. So he really only lost 1 fight, and it was to Willie the Worm Monroe, who beat him good. And Marvin always said that was, you know, that guy got him. So
yeah, I can relate. You know, I was 35-5, and my 5 losses, well, 3 of them were controversial. You know, headbutts, all this stuff.
That's got a sting.
You know, it does. And you know, when you're in the boxing game, I mean, it's a hurt business. And to come back and all that stuff, look, I did my deal, and you know, I still got my scruples. You know what I mean? I still got it, but I also know that one more fight would have been one more punch that I would have taken. That's too much, and I also knew that I'm not going to be anybody's punching bag. You know, I know that no one, when I was in there, no one ever beat my butt. You know, I gave it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I got nothing to be ashamed of, and I mean, I'm a world champion. I just didn't make the world championship money.
Well, you know, you walked away when at the right time, you know, and so did Marvin, in my opinion. You know, he left. I would say he left at the top of his game, even though he didn't get that decision. But he left, and he wasn't punchy. Like I see some of these guys now, like, you know, his brother Robbie is in rough shape because Robbie kept fighting. You know, Robbie had a lot of fights, probably when he should have stopped. And you know, I see Mike Tyson fighting now. I see Chavez coming back and fighting now, 46 years old. Like, what are you gonna prove, man? You know. So, any more questions? Anyone got any questions? Anyone?
What about the corruption? I mean, how were they able to get it away with that for all this Don King and all the rest?
Well, there was no video cameras, and there was no cell phones, and there was no internet. So everything was paper and handshakes, and it was all done behind closed doors. Organized crime was involved. But the Don King scandal that I write about in this book that impacted Marvin was a tournament of champions, he called it. So 1976, America was very enamored with boxing. The Olympics that year, Sugar Ray Leonard and Leon Spinks won the gold. The movie Rocky came out. So Don King wanted to capitalize on that, and he launched a thing called the Tournament of Champions on ABC, and they partnered with the Ring magazine. What do you think happened? Everyone in the Tournament of Champions was King's fighter. And if you weren't one of King's fighters, you didn't get in unless you became one of King's fighters. And they came and they said, they tried to take Marvin from the Petronelli brothers and said, you need to pay Don. And Marvin said no. And Marvin had already beaten most of the guys that were in the tournament. What ended up happening was the rankings that the Ring magazine put together to set the matches for the tournament were all rigged. There was guys in there that they had fake fights, they had phantom fights, fake records, fights that never happened. There was one guy that was a cop, and he was an amateur fighter, and they said he had like 12 pro fights, and he had never had a pro fight. So there was all sorts of investigations and all that, and you know, but Don wasn't phased. Nothing happened to him, and he just kept going, doing what he's done right till the end, you know. So. How long did it take you to write the book? The question is, how long did it take me to write the book? So, from the time I actually decided I was going to do it until it came out was about 2 years. You know, so I did research for about a year and a half, and then I wrote for 6-7 months, and then it just came out a couple weeks ago. So.
And what's incredible is, of course we know Casey. Casey,
yeah.
We grew up together.
Casey writes a book at breakfast.
The funny thing is, I had my first boxing match. Was at Casey's basement at the Sherman's house. And,
was it against Todd?
No, thank goodness. He was a little bigger, so I didn't have to worry about Todd. But it was against Ron Unzis. Okay. And everyone had their own. Kitty had somebody, and it was just a lot of fun. And we were in high school, You know, so we're doing this. We have the ropes were like string. You know what I mean? And you know, just little things that we would do. You know, you try to have a lot of fun. Todd was king of setting people up. Hey, you're gonna go ahead and fight this guy. You're gonna do this. So, oh man, it's funny. But Casey, you know, again, I just really respect you and Casey working together, doing so many great things.
Thank you.
And thank you.
Thank you. Well, he's great to work with. We've done, I think we've done 5 or 6 books together. This is my 8th book, and Casey and I will do more together. We got some movie stuff going on with a couple of our prior books. Hopefully, some big news to announce soon. And then, you know, we got a couple ideas for another one to do together.
Did you do Finest Hour with him? That was him all by himself.
No,
okay.
that was with another writer.
Let me tell you,
Michael Tubis.
That tearjerker. Every time I see that movie, I do.
But you know, without support of places like East End Books, you know, this is where it happens. This is where people find out about our books. So we're thankful to Jeff and the bookstore for having us. And if anyone have any more questions?
I had a quick one. I'm
Sure.
just curious, since we started talking about movies, could you share what your favorite boxing movies are?
Ooh, good idea. Do you got one?
Favorite boxing movie?
I mean, you got to put Rocky. in there.
Rocky.
I mean,
Rocky's.
That one doesn't count.
Rocky's it. I mean.
I love Cinderella Man. I love Cinderella Man. That's a beautiful movie. I love The Fighter. The Fighter's a beautiful movie.
Now I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna go with Cinderella Man, because honestly, Cinderella. You know, again, another tearjerker. I mean, when she ever broke her neck, I mean, oh, you kidding me? I mean, she just was just so. I mean, Clint, he had me.
No, you're $1 Million Baby.
Oh, $1 Million Baby.
Yeah,
Sorry,
yeah,
yes.
yeah.
That was
Russell Crowe.
Russell
Right.
Crowe. Yes, I'm sorry. Yes. Well, I
You
mean,
like that
oh,
one, too.
Russell Crowe was
Cinderella
another
Man
one.
was, Gentleman Jim Braddock.
Yeah, let me
Yeah.
tell you. I mean, you got to understand. When you ever said, you know, gotta get some milk. You know, I mean, that's. I honestly thought that boxing was going to be another takeoff because you know, 2008. You know, we go through this depression, and I thought, oh, for sure, boxing was going to take back off again because you know people need to make some money but really, what happened was UFC came.
Yeah.
And UFC is beating boxing because boxing's not. I mean, the way the UFC puts on a show is a really great. It's an event.
Yeah.
You know, it's too choppy at times with boxing. It needs to have an event. It
I think
needs to be
the
that.
gambling's a big part of it with the UFC too. The gambling is the dollars being gambled on UFC is out of control.
Yeah.
But you know, one thing about money, it just reminded me of one last story, and then I'll tell you guys about the movie we are working on this one.
Do I get to get in that one?
Hell yeah. You know, Marvin, the 1976 Olympics that I just referenced, you know, they wanted Marvin for that. Marvin was supposed to be in those Olympics, but he was already raising 2 kids from his first wife, Bertha, and he needed to make money. And he said, I can't do it. He said, a gold medal isn't putting groceries on my table. And that was sad, because that was another moment, but everything's part of the journey, you know. So, but I'll tell you guys real quick. So, the book is in development as a feature film. I'm working with Sam Rockwell, the great Academy Award winner, and it was just announced this week that Rosie Perez is part of our team as well. And I just got back from New York. I spent a couple days with Rosie, and they call her the First Lady of Boxing, and she's incredible, and she's so excited about this, and she's like, we're making this movie. So. We're heading in the right direction, so
Congratulations.
It's a story that needs to be told, I think.
I'm a Rosie Perez fan. Where's the style with letter Q, Alex?
But any final questions, anyone? No?
Well, how is Rosie involved as a producer?
Rosie's a
or an
producer.
actress
She'll be a
also in it?
producer. Yeah. Her and Sam are great friends, and she knows everything about boxing. He's a big boxing fan as well, so they were looking for a project together, and they landed on mine. So
I'm surprised that Bernard Hopkins got a lot of attention in his title defenses and stuff.
Yeah.
And it seems like they seem to have forgotten Marvin's greatness, and I just don't agree with it. And I've seen both of them.
Yeah.
I
Bernard
how do you
Hopkins is a
feel?
great fighter.
Bad boy.
he came to the memorial that we talked about, and I actually got to know him a little bit, and he's another one. I'd love to write Bernard's book. He's got an incredible story. He served a lot of time in prison, then came out and became a champ.
And a great champ. So
Yeah, I would say probably after Marvin, a lot of people say Monzon, Hagler, and then Bernard, but yeah, no,
I don't really. I mean, I didn't really see Monzon, but I mean, I just
all the old timers on this, the New York guys, they're all Carlos Monzon.
Okay.
I didn't see him. I wasn't born. But no, this is fabulous. Thank you again, Jeff. Thank you, Representative, for being here. Appreciate it so
Thank
much.
you.
Yeah. Thank you all, and happy to sign some books.